Hello everyone, this is Betsy with Married with Luggage, and I'm very excited today. We have a video interview with author Erica Bauermeister. I first met Erica when our book club in Seattle convinced her to come to our rowdy little meeting and talk about her last novel, which was The School of Essential Ingredients. We grilled her about life, love, relationships, writing, and all kinds of stuff, and we possibly got her a little bit drunk. I don't remember. So when my friend Karen emailed me to let me know she had a new book out, I immediately ordered it on Kindle and began reading. Before I was even halfway finished, I knew it was a subject that you guys would like. And so I sent off an email out of the blue just asking if she would do a video interview with us. Since this is not a blog about books, I didn't know if she would, but luckily she said yes. She must have forgotten about the wine the last time. Erica has published 2 novels and co-authored 2 reader's guides for books by and for women. Her latest book is called Joy for Beginners. Welcome to the program. I keep acting like this is a regular show.
Maybe it should be.
Maybe it should be. Okay, Erica, before we get started, I'm going to read just a little bit about the novel so people who haven't read it yet can understand what we're talking about. So the book is Joy for Beginners. It's about a group of 7 women who gather for an intimate outdoor dinner in Seattle to celebrate their friend Kate's recovery from cancer. Wine glass in hand, Kate agrees to a pact. To start her new lease on life, she'll go whitewater rafting down the Grand Canyon, a journey which frankly terrifies her. But if she goes, each of her friends must also do one thing in the next year that is new or difficult or scary. And most importantly, Kate gets to choose their challenges. So, wow, what a great idea for a book. First of all, do you remember that night in my townhouse?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You are one of the best book clubs I've ever been to. It was so much fun.
Oh, I really do miss those ladies now that we're on the trip. I really, really do. So, well, one thing that I really loved about this book, well, first of all, I loved both books. But your characters, they're from a variety of backgrounds and ages, similar to my book club, actually. But the theme seems to be about making peace and moving on with your choices and also the choices that are made for you in this life. One of my favorite quotes from your last book, The School of Essential Ingredients, was, "Sometimes, Nina, our greatest gifts grow from what we are not given." So you explore the subject in detail with these 7 women. What is it about this subject that keeps drawing you in?
Well, I got the idea for the book from my sister-in-law, actually,
Oh.
who we had a conversation, and she was about to turn 50, and she said, for my 50th birthday, she'd been in a band for a long time. She's one of the singers, and she's a very shy person.
Mm-hmm.
And so she said, for my 50th birthday, I want to do a solo concert.
Wow.
And I was I was completely impressed. I said, okay, if you do it, I will fly out to Missouri, and I will watch you.
Aww.
And she did, and I did, and it was fantastic. I mean, she was incandescent up there, and she just all of a sudden was this person who was having fun with the crowd, and they loved her, and it was just a celebration. It was wonderful. And so I thought, this is a really cool idea, and it sort of sat in the back of my head.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, it sort of morphed out from a group of women celebrating their 50th birthday to, I wanted to be able to hit more age ranges to hit more ideas. And I'm also a really scared person. I'm not sure I could do what you do. I've lived in another country, but this whole idea of just throwing everything up in the air, I mean, I'd love to say I could do it, but as a general rule, I'm a very cautious person. And so the book kind of morphed into this idea of being about fear and the fear that comes before the celebration. And I was also really interested in what are the different kinds of fear, not just the big obvious ones, but what are the little small ones that hide from us, but actually are a lot bigger than we think.
Absolutely. Those little ones are very, very powerful, aren't they?
And they hide in very innocuous things. Some of the challenges are really small, like baking bread, and you'd think, oh, that's not a big deal. But in reality, for the person who gets that challenge, it's a huge deal because of what it means.
Well, and it's an important lesson about how it's improper to judge other people based on their challenges, because as you read through the book, you see what someone might consider an easy task, another person finds very, very challenging. And you could see even amongst some of the characters, there was a little kind of a disparaging note, like, oh, you got that, lucky you.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep. Yep.
So, well, speaking of the challenges, one very important aspect of the book is that these challenges are given to each person by someone else. No one gets to create their own. I mean, we all have these kind of ideas about maybe what we would want to do, but do you think having a challenge issued rather than conceived on your own is harder, or maybe that our friends know what we need sometimes better than we do?
I think it's much harder. It's interesting because I've been talking to a lot of book clubs, and they'll say, "Oh, for School of Essential Ingredients, we all made food from the book, and that was a really fun way to kind of enter the book. And for this one, we all want to do challenges, which I think is fantastic." But what generally happens is they go, "But we want to choose our own." The whole issue is huge, and what I'm telling people is, even if you end up choosing your own, I really recommend, whether it's anonymously and you put them all in a hat and pass it around or whatever, but you ask your friends what their challenges for you would be. Because what I'm hearing from people is people who do that find that they are getting things that are really insightful and are not perhaps what they would have challenged themselves to do. And I think it's really illuminating that way.
Well, sometimes I think we don't know what our friends think of us about our strengths or our weaknesses. And one thing that's been really great about our journey is the fact that we got to say a really heartfelt goodbye to all of our friends because we were going to be gone for so long. And I think so many times in our lives, people that we see on an everyday basis, we would never stop and say, you mean this much to me because of this. You have done this for me in my life, and I love you because of this. And it's the same way when someone issues you a challenge or says something that they think might benefit you. It's not something that we would normally say to someone. So opening up that dialogue sounds like a fantastic, fantastic thing to do, even if you never did any of those things.
Right, right. And that was one of the things about having Kate issue all the challenges. In a certain way, she's like Lillian in School of Essential Ingredients, where she knows what everybody needs. But whereas Lillian was very instinctive, she had no particular facts to base her sort of leaps of intuition. Kate, I wanted Enjoy for Beginners it to be a slightly more realistic book. And I wanted Kate to have a very good reason why she knew these women, a realistic reason. And I think one of the other times where you have those conversations that you had when you were leaving to go around the world is when you think someone might be dying and you say the things that you might not normally say, and the topics you cover are wide-ranging and important and true to you, and you learn a lot about people and yourself when you're in one of those situations.
Yeah. So one of the characters in your book is told that she needs to grow down a little. I think it was Ava. I've never heard this phrase before, and it sort of resonated with me. I think that many of us have lost our sense of play, and I wondered where you got this phrase and how does it work in your own life?
I can't imagine that I made it up. It feels new to me, but my memory is so bad. I'm sure I've heard people say it in multiple other places. Now, I'm sure everyone will write me and tell me where I heard it. There's another line that kind of speaks to the same thing in the book. In Sarah's story, she's a young mother, and it goes through her backstory of growing up, and her dad made and raised kinetic sculptures. And there is a line, sort of the motto of the kinetic sculpture race is, adults need to have fun so children will want to grow up.
That's a fantastic phrase.
That's another sort of theme that's running through the book is, while all these women have had things that have made them grow up in ways that perhaps they wish they hadn't had to, there's also this need for us to remember to pay attention and to play.
Right, right. When I was in my 20s during my first marriage, an older woman friend, actually a friend of my mother, told me not to ignore the cultivation of new friends, and that as I got older, my female friends would sustain me in ways that a romantic relationship could not. I think your books tend to agree with this statement. Why do you think this is true?
Wow. Well, I think as a general rule, and I see with my son's generation that, thank God, this is changing, but I think women have typically been brought up to really pay attention to other people. And boys are brought up to do things. And so I think that particularly as we get into those later phases, when we're having children, when we're out there on the job, it's really nice to know that there are people who are paying attention to what we need and are perhaps answering those needs without being asked. My sister-in-law, the musician, has this wonderful song called "Read My Mind," which is this whole song to her husband about how I don't need flowers, I don't need wine, I just want you to read my mind. And it's a great song. And she sings this song, and all the men in the audience are kind of looking like, okay, kind of perplexed. And women are going, yes, we get it. So I like I said, I'm watching my son's generation. I think there's a lot more. Men are being given the license to do that now, and women are being given the license to say what they need.
Right.
But I think there's still that feeling of the elegance and the gracefulness of having someone intuit what your needs are.
Right.
That I think we shouldn't lose.
I agree with that. I do think that, especially since we've been traveling together so much, I think ours has maybe shifted more than maybe the regular person, just because we're together 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
Yes.
So you learn to intuit a lot when you're together all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing I read in your bio was fascinating. You wrote, "I've always wanted to write, but when I read Tilly Olson's 'I Stand Here Ironing' in college, I finally knew what I wanted to write. Books that took what many considered to be unimportant bits of life and gave them beauty, shone light upon their meaning. The only other thing I knew for certain back in college, however, was that I wasn't grown up yet enough to write them." So what about the unimportant bits of life do you find so intriguing, and why do you think it takes so long for us to be able to appreciate and then write about them?
Well, I think again, it's a matter of being given the license to say that they're important. That's part of it. I think when we're younger, it's real easy to say, okay, well, if this book isn't about war or a big white whale or, I had this man tell me the other day, he said, you're a really good writer, but if you would just write about something serious like the software industry, you could write great literature. And I thought, oh, okay, we're not done educating yet.
The School of Essential Coding.
Brilliant. Yeah, exactly. So it's just a matter of, I think it requires, a good writer is a writer who pays attention. And I think sometimes it is difficult to learn how to pay attention to the small things, but also it takes maturity to understand what they mean. And when I say I wasn't grown up enough yet, I simply didn't have the life experience. Right. And I needed to have children and be married for a long time and, be with friends as they died and, lose a parent and those things that make you more complicated as an individual, and I think bring depth to writing. And I think that's the thing about writing about unimportant things is they are deeply complicated. And that's what we have to bring forth and make beautiful.